What I just found out greatly diminishes the likelihood of something very good happening with gold here in the United States and the potential for something very bad to happen. I'll explain in this video as we explore. This news just coming to us from Reuters about data coming from the Swiss. Well, it's not good for gold in terms of what many people had thought and theorized could be happening with gold here in the United States that has been flooding in from Switzerland and London. That is the fact that the gold is now starting to come back to Switzerland from the United States after the bullion exclusion from Trump's tariffs. That's right. This is not good for many who thought that there was a ulterior motive for having that gold come into the United States, potentially to be a part of a sovereign wealth fund that is going to be established within the year. Now, as to whether or not that will happen is now much less likelihood to take place here. The details are as follows, but before I get into that, I want to remind you of channel sponsor Summit Metals. If you want to look at the best price for gold products, Summit Metals is the place to consider for low prices for gold. Gold, which traders have been flying to New York since December, as a precaution against the possibility of a broad U.S. tariffs hitting bullion imports, is being shipped back to Switzerland, where it came from, according to official data. Swiss customs data showed that the country's gold imports from the United States rose to a 13-month high of 25.5 metric tons in March, from 12.1 tons in February. Gold exports from Switzerland to the United States fell 32% month on month to 103.2 tons. U.S. warehouses approved by Comex, part of the CME group, have seen 8 consecutive days of gold outflows now. For the first time in 14 months, daily Comex data showed as the U.S. futures premium wound down after major dislocation. And boy, remember, that was the buzz topic on many analysts out there, and those of us here who've been documenting this have been very profoundly impressed and alarmed in a way, in a good way, as a potential possibility after what Secretary Scott Bessent has said, Treasury Secretary, about a revaluation, and that very well could mean sort of a more commodities-based and other factors that have come into play here that lead to a possibility of maybe revaluing gold and maybe even setting up some sort of foundation for a gold standard. Not necessarily a gold standard itself, but many people thought that maybe, like other nations around the world, we have a sovereign wealth fund where we have things of actual value or what have you, assets, and gold could be a part of that. And many of us thought that could occur. And by the way, I'm not discounting that could still be a possibility. Some of that gold that is going back, there's still some here. Some of that could be purchased, who knows, as part of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. How much? Well, a lot less now, considering what we're seeing with outflows. Gold, silver, and platinum worth more than $80 billion was delivered to the Comex warehouses in the December-March period, keeping logistics firms and Swiss refineries busier than usual. However, the urgency to fly gold and ship silver to New York was removed when Washington excluded the metals from President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs 2 weeks ago, and the flow is now slowly reversing back towards Switzerland. Comex gold stocks are down now 1.5 million troy ounces, worth $4.8 billion, to 43.6 million ounces. And that equates to about 1,357 metric tons since hitting an all-time high of 45.1 million ounces on the 4th of April. They had started rising from 17.1 million ounces in November when Trump was elected president again, the first president to be elected in non-consecutive terms since Grover Cleveland. Part of what is currently being delivered out of the United States gold vaults is coming back to Switzerland, the world's biggest bullion refining and transit hub, said a source at a Swiss refinery. They also came and funneled through the LBMA in London as well. It's just one of these things. Gold makes its move, comes closer, it's amazing how quickly it had moved out, and now it's slowly kind of creeping back in. And I think that potentially we're going to see this type of activity occur more rapidly as tariffs become more relaxed and there's more delays and there's more reassurance. But you know what? What happens if they set tariffs back on, or the potential that they could come back to bullion again? I think it can reverse very, very quickly, which means that if there is a decision to move as a sovereign wealth fund is created, that they may use that tactic again. Could this be essentially sort of a test, if you will, to see how quickly gold could come into the United States? So the outflow from the U.S. will be modest for now, as gold in the country's vaults continues to serve as a hedge against the ongoing wider uncertainty for part of the market. In a typical year, the U.S. consumes about 115 tons of gold in physical coins and bars, meaning that the remaining kilo bars in CME registered warehouses are sufficient to last this segment of the market for nearly 12 years, according to Ross Norman, an independent analyst. And now, for the first time, kilo bars are now worth $100,000. It's crazy. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when we talked about with the gold price reaching record highs before, when the 400-ounce bar, the good delivery size, one of the good delivery size, the largest good delivery size gold bar, was worth a cool $1 million. Yes, indeed. It's crazy to think about. That's exactly what we're seeing now. Gold continues to be trading at these record highs with some slight pullbacks, but the market's closed over the holiday weekend. What's going to happen with some of this gold? Will it stop and pause for a while? What could happen from here on out? It'd be very interesting to see how it plays out. But nonetheless, at least what we're hearing now with this official news is bad news for those of you who thought that maybe we could be heading more towards a gold standard. I was always a little bit skeptical of that. But nonetheless, especially with now Treasury Secretary Bessent and with legislation that's coming from Wyoming has been introduced to revalue gold, and that revaluation of gold would mean a windfall of money that could be used to buy Bitcoin as a reserve, which I think is a bad idea. I think this emboldens that idea. Unless, of course, we see some gold being moved into the sovereign wealth fund that will be protected and not be used for that measure. But nonetheless, it is a little bit of a fear that this actually emboldens that idea instead of actually adding gold and as the ultimate sound money. Now, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is a gold bug, admittedly. I've talked about that on this channel too. But still, to be open, he's also a Bitcoin fan as well. And I have no problem with Bitcoin, but they're two completely different assets. Never the two shall cross in terms of using one to buy another, in my view. I guess, if anything, it may be more wise, I think, in some ways, to take the Bitcoin that we've already seized from drug deals and alike and take and use that, the profits from that, to buy gold. I think that would be okay, but not the other way around. I think we should own the gold outright. Well, it's actually we the people's gold, but nonetheless, and a true audit should be happening on the gold reserves, by the way. One that actually establishes it and, the source of the gold that is genuine, where it is, and the like. We've not had that happen in quite some time, that's for sure. In fact, it was in 1954, if my memory serves. And nonetheless, here we are now in a situation where the gold that has come to the United States, with many salivating, pun intended here, that gold being in the United States is changing the whole order of things, the economic order of things. For a while it had. But now with it moving back, we're going back to status quo. At least we're heading in that direction. But we'll see how it plays out here from this point on. But nonetheless, it changes nothing in terms of the dynamics of what gold has been for thousands of years. A stable store of wealth, that shall continue for sure. So there it is. There's your news for the day. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I like to give you the latest news on the world of precious metals. So if you enjoy what I do here, I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. Trying to get 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So far, right now, at the pace I'm going, I'm not going to make it. Nonetheless, just know that I appreciate those of you who are already subscribed. It means a lot to me that you've stuck with me this long. So with that being said, I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.